Welcome back to Let's Talk About That. Today we have Nathan and Kate from Varns and Hoover. How are you doing today?
Doing well. How
We're
are
good.
you doing?
Doing amazing. Yeah. So let's talk about Varns and Hoover. How did it get started?
So in 1886, my great-great-grandpa started Varns and Hoover. At the time, it was called Wise and Varns because he had started the business with his half-brother, William W. Wise. And in 1886, 1887, the entire town of Mansalona burned down.
Wow.
So at that point, we took our insurance check and came down to Middlebury. And then we started the hardware store across the street from our current location. And then we were there from 1886 to 1912. In 1912, we moved across the street to our current location. And I couldn't tell you exactly why we moved locations, but if I had to guess, we were going from, which is still a main street spot, but to a corner main street spot.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's always better to have a corner than it is to be right on Main Street because you're hitting two different roads.
Right.
So I think it was probably a larger location, and plus it was maybe a little bit better location.
Right. Yeah. So what's it look like running something like this, like a hardware store that's generationally passed through time after time? Of course, I know that you pretty much had to you grew up in it,
Mm-hmm.
in the family. So what's that look like?
Well, growing up when I was a kid and, even before elementary school, I used to hang out at the hardware store. My grandpa and grandma had a bed and breakfast in Middlebury, the Varns guest house. And so I would spend the night with my grandparents. I would make coffee cake or cookies in the morning for the bed and breakfast. And then around lunchtime, I would go to the hardware store. So I would hang out with grandpa, run around the upstairs. So I have a lot of good memories growing up being at the hardware store. And so I guess as I grew older, I tried to picture myself, okay, could I work at the hardware store? What would it look like? I watched my grandpa, just the way he interacted with the customers.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned a lot from that, but I didn't know how I would ever actually get to the point of working at the hardware store. So, moving on to high school and college, I went to school, got my degree in exercise science and sports psychology. And I still always thought I wanted to work at the hardware store, but in the back of my mind, well, I spent all this money on a degree. Why would I continue on with something like retail?
But you experience new things, though. I mean, it's kind of good. Like I've heard, especially family-owned businesses, sometimes you journey off to see what else is out there first, and then you always kind of come back later. But it's good to kind of see what's out there first, right? So you're able to kind of come out of school and see what that was like to get out in the workforce. And and you have some psychology side of that, right? So understanding how people work, is a certain component, or how people think, which is a strong component of really understanding how to provide a strong customer experience.
Sure.
Right? Understanding what the needs are, right? So let's dig into a little bit of that too. Just not to just coming back, but there's always a reason you decide to do what you're doing right now. Okay. So, in a little bit of your past going into the workforce, what did that look like? Your first job outside of college. We'll go way back into that and then kind of come back.
So growing up naturally, I've just always been a people person.
Mm-hmm.
I've loved dealing with people, working with people, just getting on that relationship level. And a lot of that I learned through working retail in high school. Mm-hmm. But then even after college, and I got my first job, straight out of college, I graduated in 2008, which was a terrible time to graduate.
Oh, that was a fun year, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I was working 3 jobs right after graduation. Part-time. I was living downtown Indianapolis, having the time of my life. It was great. I worked and lived right downtown. I worked at Palomino as a host, just taking people to their tables. I worked at GNC at Circle Center Mall. And then I also worked at Bally Total Fitness as a personal trainer. So through that first year after graduation, you know, I've always been a hard worker and I've always enjoyed working with people, but that really gave me this kind of fire under me to go, okay, I need to do something. Like I'm working 3 different part-time jobs, you know, working my tail off, don't have a whole lot to show for it besides I'm just living my life, having a good time. And that was when I came back home and got my, which I would consider my real true first job, which was at the hospital. I was working in the rehabilitation center for cardiovascular. And on top of that, I was doing a couple other volunteer jobs within the hospital. So I guess what I was trying to do at that point was just get my foot in the door. I wanted to get to know as many people as I could, start networking with as many people as I could. And it all really paid off because through that first job at the hospital, I was able to kind of navigate through different departments. And, you know, I really found that one job that I truly enjoyed, which was at Get Fit, Get Healthy, which was a wellness coordinator, starting out as a health coach. So, you know, I was able to use everything that I learned through college. And I was able to learn or use the personal training, the exercise science.
Just everything that you had learned, right?
But also the psychology part, which was one of my favorite parts in college, was intro to neuroscience, biological psychology, just learning how people think and how people react to different situations. So I think, you know, doing all that, working at Get Fit, Get Healthy, I was able to grow a lot. I was able to grow as a person, but I was also able to grow
like your skill set and your awareness around people and situations, right? So so now if you fast forward past that, now we're at Varns. What made you decide, or what was the baton handoff at that point to decide that, hey, I'm ready to do this?
Well, before my grandparents had passed, I had been very close with them, spent a lot of time with them, spent a lot of time with my grandma. And, you know, they always wanted me to work at the hardware store. They always saw me as running the hardware store someday, working at the hardware store, and just learning how to work in a small town. Because a small town is very different from a big town.
Absolutely.
I've lived in a big town. I've been in a large city, and it's fine. It's fun, but it's different. And you interact with people differently. In a small town, you know people's first names. You know where people live. You know what they did the night before. Like it's a lot more close knit community. So in that, there's a lot more. I would say almost integrity, where you hold each other to certain standards because you're not just neighbors, you're not just uncles and cousins, but you're
a staple of the community.
Yeah, your community. Yeah. Like you are all in it together.
And we live downtown, which was to me a key component of wanting to work downtown, is that they existed together, living downtown, working downtown.
Because you are downtown.
Because we're downtown.
Right.
I always wanted to be a townie, as they say, because I grew up in Middlebury as well, but always was more on the countryside. And, but now it's like everyone knows where we live, or most people know where we live. And there was a water leak on one of the adjacent roads, and someone knocked on our door and thought we had special connections to the town just because we owned the store about this water leak.
Well, and that they associate it with the hardware store, meaning it's the fix.
Yeah.
Right? Like you have the solutions in your building. How do we fix this?
It was kind of hilarious because I'm like, well, did you call the police? They're like, No.
we just came
Go to
in.
the hardware guy.
Go to the hardware. Like,
Well,
can
it
we
was-
fix this?
it was-
Like, and most people
after
don't know my
hours.
name. They're like, just go to the hardware guy.
But it was night, and they just came and knocked on our door.
Yeah.
So I called the non-emergency police line.
Mm-hmm.
Out they came. Yeah, there was a main break, and it got fixed. But yeah, everyone came out staring at it. Oh boy, yeah, the water's leaking.
So there's definitely an intimate connection with, like, hey, if something happens in the town,
they
hey,
show up at our
the
house.
hardware guy, hey, you, how do we fix this? You have the solution. Some people, they probably don't even think about it, right? Like the natural step of like alerting someone that should know about it, So what's the difference between, like, since you kind of touched on like the big city, working in a big city, and then I know you're operating a business and you've worked in businesses in a large city. What is the difference between the two? I know it's more close and intimate, but like the bigger cities, like what is the psychology behind the difference between the two?
Interesting question.
I like to throw the stumpers out there.
They don't expect as much out of you.
Right.
You mean in a
city?
In a city.
It's more results driven, maybe.
You're a
like
store. They come, they get their thing, they leave.
You're just a number. Like, there's not as much loyalty probably in a city, where in a smaller community, people feel like, they would rather come to me, even though I might be a little bit more expensive on certain items. They go, well, but I want to go to him because I trust him. I know he'll give me good service and he won't beat around the bush. And some people like just having that relationship, that kind of touch that you get in a small,
little bit more town. Value, like having a more valuable experience.
Yeah.
Because, like, especially if you go to a hardware store, there's big boxes out there, right? But a lot of them, it's a little bit different vibe when it comes down to, you go to, say, a big box store, won't name them, call them out, but usually they don't know sometimes exactly what you're looking for. Mm-hmm. And it's like sometimes very simple, like, hey, I'm looking for a ladder. Oh, well, I don't know if we have those. You're like, okay, this is a hardware store. How do we come on? So it's a little bit different. Like you know how to, they come to you with problems, right? So you probably really have to be able to troubleshoot different scenarios. So it's a lot of dialogue back and forth, right?
All
really
the time.
Trying to understand how to get to the result
all the
that
time.
they're looking for.
And I was going to say, it's not even the difference between a big city and a small town. It's just not Middlebury is bigger than Middlebury. Mm-hmm. And people come into the store and they go, oh, I really don't want to have to go into Goshen today. Oh boy, if you could just do this and I don't have to go to Elkhart, that would be incredible. And it is, because you go to those big box stores and there's little to no help at all.
Yeah.
And oftentimes they're in the middle of a project and it's like the husband is still at home, like elbow deep in the project.
Real deep.
He sends son, daughter, wife, cousin, whoever it is that isn't covered in plaster at the moment.
Covered in the work.
Send them in, and we have to somehow navigate whatever it is that he told this person to tell us that they need so he can get back to work. Mm-hmm. And that is non-existent in a big box store.
Right.
Because, they'll come in looking for the main joke is a thingy.
The thingy?
The thingy.
Yeah, I know about the thingy.
Thing that does this, that wraps around.
Yeah, that thing.
It's kind of silver.
The thingy.
Yeah.
This kind of silver.
So we go, can you draw it for me?
Yeah.
What does it do? What does it not do? Do you have a picture? Did you buy it in this century?
Have you seen it before? Because like they may not even have it, and they're like, "I'm looking for the thingy." Goes on,
where have you gotten
on
this
the what's
before?
it, right?
Yeah. The ones we've trained really well, they either bring the broken thingy with them, or at least a photograph.
Pictures are nice. Pictures are very nice.
Because otherwise, we just sit and we try to. It's almost like miming and
making
guessing
weird sounds
and
zip, zip, like you're just trying to figure it out, right?
Sometimes we'll just sit down and look it up online. We'll type in
But
whatever they're
you're
describing.
taking the time to do that.
We help
right?
them
Right,
till they can find what they're looking for.
And it sounds cliche, but the thing that sets us different from everybody else is the service. I mean, for what you're just saying is that we're going the extra mile. When somebody walks in the door, they come to us because we may not have the answer, but we're willing to figure out the answer. And, I think even if we don't get to the answer, people appreciate the time that we spent on it. And, they could go anywhere, but they may not get that extra special touch, going the extra mile. And, I think for me, part of my job, that's the enjoyment of not doing the same old thing every single day, but having a different project, a different problem, or, a customer comes in with a plumbing problem. Well, it was similar to the last plumbing problem that I had, but it's a little bit different. And then you can put things together like Legos, and it's just, it becomes simple once you do it enough. It becomes more natural.
And you learn how to help people quicker and quicker. And you also learn how to tease them because usually they're very stressed.
So it's kind of de-escalating the problem because they're coming to you with a problem.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to calm them down. So going back to the kind of the coaching aspect that comes into play, right? So like how to talk to people and try to help them be more comfortable so that they can get the results they're looking for. So their goal is to solve whatever the problem there is, and you're able to kind of get them to a level where you guys can actually go the next mile to get to the solution. So that's cool. I like to kind of decouple that because like we're strong because of some of our past and our experiences. And as I like the way you said, like it kind of layers up, like you get more experience you have, every new problem that you solve, it even makes you stronger because the next person with a plumbing issue, you have experience for whatever happened before then. So did you see any of that, like as you were younger, like your grandpa, like solving those problems and kind of catching on to like the cues of that? Did you pick any of that up?
Well, I always really looked up to my grandpa.
Oh, did you?
I mean, he was an amazing man. He did amazing things in his life. And the one thing that people really, I even hear men talk about this now when they come into the stores, how much they loved my grandpa. He was a people person to the max. He could talk Dutch to the Amish. He was just ornery enough that he could get away with it, but people loved him. And, he was a funny guy. The one thing that I could never do was tell the stories and the jokes that he could tell. Because I grew up and he would always tell these long drawn out stories, which is a very hardware thing to do. You're
still young.
Well,
hey,
I'm still learning.
You're gonna be there. You'll get there.
But I always looked up to him because he could do these things, and when I was younger, I couldn't. But that's one thing that I've learned as working at the store is maybe not telling the jokes and the stories as well as he did. But the one thing that I struggled with was like problem solving. Like all my life doing problem solving, and especially like paragraph problems. Like
the story problems, like scenarios. Yeah.
I was never good at those. But after working at the hardware store, you learn to listen to people, listen to their story, listen to the problem that's going on. And you have to remember from start to end what their plumbing problem is. And that can be that was difficult for me to start with, but now like I love doing that because I can listen to a problem and understand it in full.
So would you say that you have developed like different processes now, like the things that you know how to ask, like whenever someone comes in to be able to break down, to get all the facts that you need to get to the solution? Did you kind of develop that as you went in? Because when you operating a store versus helping in the store are two different things.
Right.
Right. So like what's that look like when like your processes and operating a hardware store? Because it's more than just helping people too. That is a major component of the customer experience, but then there's a lot behind the scenes. Let's get into that a little bit. What's that look like at Varns?
So I manage the store. We are owners of this hardware store. I work there 5 days a week. Kate, she works her normal job in Elkhart during the week, and then she also comes to the hardware on Saturdays and works. So, we are workers at the hardware, but like you said, we also operate the store. We do the day-to-day operations, open and close, take care of all of the insurance and taxes and all the other stuff that people don't like. Yeah, inventory.
Yeah.
We do a weekly inventory.
Wow.
Which it's a snapshot inventory.
Yeah, but it's still an inventory where we go through our sections and we do our ordering every Saturday.
So let's break down to that bit just to show the context of that, because I don't think the listeners or viewers really understand what the SKU level looks like. Like the SKU complexity of a hardware store. Touch on that a little. How many products are we looking at? Just estimate it. I mean, probably not exact, but like, what's that look like?
Individual SKUs, we probably have anywhere between 70 and 80,000 different SKUs.
Yeah, that's where I wanted to touch on that, because you're operating a hardware store of this isn't like just a little hardware store. You have the SKUs, the all of the solutions as a big box store would have in town, right?
Yeah.
Just so it may not be as big as one of those big box stores, but you have the solutions that most of the local community would need in your space, and you're managing that. So, do you have like certain products that are kind of high volume that usually you consume a lot? And what is that most popular product that people come to the hardware store for?
So we do our ordering through Do It Best, which is our co-op.
Okay.
That's who we get the majority of our product from. And we're set up on an electronic ordering system. So every week it tells us what we should order.
Okay.
And then we have to go through to make sure that that's accurate with what we actually have
before
on the
the
shelf.
order goes out. Hey, is this real? Was there a return or something? And we have more than what's in stock.
Do you remember how many third parties we have?
Well, and that's, the hardest part about the ordering. The Do It Best side is really easy. They make it easy. It's electronic ordering. Everything has mins and maxes that it orders up to. But out of the third party vendors, and I think that's another thing that sets us apart, is that we have so many niche items that our community uses that other people, like say Goshen and Elkhart, they may not need that stuff because of our Amish community, our manufacturing community. And our customers, just over 137 years, they have grown to have certain expectations, things that they've used for the last 50 years.
Those thingies
that their grandpa used.
You've got that. I've got those thingies that you need. Yeah.
Our joke is we've got almost everything. If we don't have it, you don't need it.
That's impactful. That's impactful. We may need to try a different thingy.
And then the follow-up to that is, at least we try.
At least we try. Yeah. Well, and that's really cool that like your store is tooled towards the community. And like, I don't think people realize that when you look at it, say if it was like a Ace Hardware in Goshen, they will have different thingies based on what the city of Goshen may need or downtown. So you're probably always like looking at adjusting to like what's really in need, like, so you don't just carry inventory for things that people don't need, right? Like, so is that like a challenge sometimes, is like kind of looking at, are we going to try this new product and, you're not sure if it's going to work out or not? Do you guys kind of experiment with any of that, especially in your space?
Yeah, that can be a difficult thing because you want to get in the new items, you want to get in fun things, but you also know in the back of your mind that, well, this may not sell as well as it actually may. But it's one of those lost leaders that,
Right.
not a lost leader, but it's something you get in just to have it.
Right.
So that people can be like, oh yeah, I recognize that. And then, you know what, I'm going to have to sell that.
So should it be like somebody asking for the thingy? And you're like, well, we don't have that, but since people are asking about it, maybe we should get a couple of those because it may be, you know, you may be able to sell them.
Yeah. And sometimes you just know you're going to sit on something for a while. And if that's the case, then, you know, you try to clearance it out, get rid of it quick so you can move space for another product.
Right.
So I think, you know, in the back of my mind, there's always a certain amount of cash that I'm like kind of playing with. Where I'm like,
funny money.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay.
You're like, hey, we're going to play with this funny money. This is to roll the dice a little bit.
But you can't let that get out of control.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of scary part is like, okay, I want to get this fun stuff in. I want to get this fun stuff in. I'm going to take a loss on this, but let's get it in anyways.
Like we'll try it. We'll experiment with this, see if this works, see if our customers like it. And if it catches on fire, then you keep doing it, right?
And we try not to experiment too much with third-party items
Yeah.
because it's just harder to manage. You have to buy X amount, shipping costs, this, you know, and you have to buy minimums. Whereas when things are in the warehouse through our co-op, it's less intimidating to try something new.
And it's consistent, right?
It's consistent because sometimes you can just get one in if it's in the warehouse.
That's useful.
Oh yeah. Especially
versus 100.
Exactly. Exactly. So, you know, there's a hardware show twice a year and we get to go and see all the stuff. They're debuting this new product, that new product, this new and improved product. Sometimes we're just restocking the tried and trues from show specials. And other times we just get to see like fun new things and be like, you're in the warehouse, right? They're like, oh yeah, we are. Okay, all right, maybe we'll try that.
I'll try one, please. Let's try one of those. Purple Springs. Do they like them? Maybe, maybe not. Don't know. So I notice you do a lot of outdoor projects too. So like, do you help a lot of your customers kind of help source some of that? Like, because I know they'll have outdoor like mulch and stone. And do you do a lot of that?
Yeah.
The reason why I said that because I saw you with a wheelbarrow once. And I was like, oh, he's moving product. Yeah.
Yeah, we do a lot of lawn and garden. Every spring we have mulch, dirt, soil amendments, and you know we definitely serve our community.
And stuff like that is third party.
Okay.
We have to source a lot of that stuff from more local
but
type
they rely
vendors.
on you to get it so that you can centralize it because they don't want to go all over the place. They want to just come to you and say, I'm going to need this, the wheelbarrow, you know, some shovels. You know, you can sell more of your product, right? By like for some of those third parties that are a little bit a pain in the butt to get to, but they help you internally, right? With some of the other products because they're going to need some gloves, you know, those thingies that they need when they're actually using the third party products that you're providing, right?
And speaking of spring, you asked earlier about what do we sell the most of?
Yes.
And in general, it's probably like plumbing, electrical, but that's more of a category than a thing.
Right.
Whereas if you could point to one thing that just absolutely flies off the shelf, it's our ferns.
Really? Ferns, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hanging basket ferns.
Hanging basket ferns.
ferns.
And then the flowers.
And so that has to be a local thing, right? That has to be.
We have a greenhouse out of Michigan that his grandpa had been working with for decades.
So they know you guys for that, for having the ferns, right? And do you think that's something like passed down over like generations, just people knowing about that, or it's just?
Well, yeah, it grew.
Yeah, but the ferns are kind of more recent.
Oh, are they?
Okay. I would say in the last 20 years.
Yeah. So we've had a relationship with this grower for the last almost 50 years.
Okay.
And people have always known to come to us to get flowers, to get vegetables, their starts. And, I think that's one reason that, we serve the community in Middlebury. And in general, Middlebury is a very good looking town. The people that live there keep their houses up. They keep them looking nice. And they like to furnish it with flowers and keep their yards looking nice. So I would kind of like to think that we kind of help with that a little bit. But the ferns specifically have really grown in popularity in the last 7 to 10 years. I mean, since I've worked at the store, we didn't used to sell the amount that we do now.
So what do you think what's the reasoning for that? Do you know?
They're the best.
Because they're the best. I like that.
That's what we've been told.
We sell them at a good price.
And a really good price.
I mean, not only are they exceptional ferns, our grower, he grows them double the size. So that's why they're going to be larger than most ferns that you see out there. But not only are they larger, we're able to sell them at a lower cost than what you would if you were to say go to like Menards or Lowe's. It's just
big box stores.
Yeah, well, the big box stores, the BBs.
Yeah, those BBs. Yeah,
or the fancier greenhouses.
Yeah, and I think you have to. We like to keep our costs down for our customers because we know that people can go anywhere.
Right.
But we want to keep people coming back to us because of the way that we serve them and also for the prices. And I know that there's certain items that people can get more or can get for cheaper somewhere else, but they still want to come to us just for that service.
Right. And convenience too. It's a big deal. And for most of the listeners, the cost usually is affected by how many people touch it, like till it gets to where it's actually being sold. So by you having those relationships, like with the grower, like you're going straight to the source.
Right.
So that's how you're able to kind of pass the cost savings down. And that's why it's different versus going to a BB to be able to find it, because it's touched a lot of different hands going through different distributors potentially. And you're able to negotiate with your vendors, right? So there's always going to be like a difference where, we always look at time to value. Like, so if someone comes to your store and it may call something, the one thingy may be a little bit more expensive, it's still how much time will it take for you to drive somewhere else and energy and whatever to just get it now. It's not that much difference and it's convenient for you. So we're always kind of balancing that out, right? So let's talk about this. What do we have here? What do we have here going on here?
Well, we've just got some different items, some artifacts here from the hardware store. So the wood register here is our original cash register. This is when my grandma was just a child. She remembers this is what they used. And it was pretty simple. It didn't have all the fancy buttons that you saw on the others, but it's just got a drawer here for change, a drawer there for cash, and you would actually hand write the receipt here.
Oh yeah.
So you would write it out, and then I'm pretty sure you hit the button here, and then everything would roll a little bit.
So you guys still use this as your backup, right?
Yeah. Just when the lights go out.
Just when the lights go out. Oh, we got you. Let me pull it up. It has like probably 30 cents in it. Like, hey, small bills only. Yeah, so we were joking earlier about this. Like, usually this thing is stacked with $100 bills. Just joking. Yeah. So what's going on with the knives?
Yeah, so we've been a case knife dealer for decades, probably at least since the 50s or 60s. And I wanted to bring this one in because this was my grandpa's knife that he used for. When I was little, I remember him using this knife, and
it's his daily driver.
Yeah, it was his daily driver. I have a similar knife to that. It's just that it's stainless steel. Case they still make that model. I think that's actually from the 60s.
Where his name is engraved on it, yeah?
Yep, Dean Wursler. This knife here was a knife that my great-grandpa got at the 1933 Chicago World's Fair. Not a case knife, but still kind of a fun item that I wanted to bring in and show everybody. Couple just little freebies that we'd used to hand out to customers. Farmer's Pocket Ledger. And then just a little memo book. I know a lot of farmers would keep track of their cattle and just daily operations around the farm. This would have been dated early 1900s.
But that was their thingy.
Yeah, this was their thing.
And when it was full, you had to get a fresh one, right?
It might even have a name in it. But people would write their names, they'd keep their addresses, and
That's so cool.
this was actually a John Deere item.
It said 1945.
Yeah, 1945.
Yeah, that's cool.
79th annual edition. Something else we used to sell at the hardware store years ago was stoves, wood stoves, oil was Round Oak. They were out of Dewowjack, Michigan, and that was one of the main ones that we sold. So these were just little advertisements that we'd hand out to people. I think it even has the old name Wise and Varns on it.
Wow,
It's kind of
really
fun.
Cool.
So it's at least pre-1912.
Yeah,
And they don't make them like that anymore.
And it's kind of funny because
they were just goofy advertisements.
yeah, I think it's supposed to be polar bears, and it's melting their little iceberg.
They had crude humor.
And they're
back then.
they're hot. He's fanning himself because that's how hot
That's how
the
hot it was.
stove.
They're like, hey,
This stove is so
that
hot.
could melt our house. Awesome, I need that.
Something else here, we've got a certificate from my great-great-grandpa. It was, I think, a certificate for him being in the hardware business for 50 years.
Wow.
And I think that was probably 1920s, 1930s or so. Just thought that was kind of a fun little certificate.
1937. Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, and there's a lot that I don't know about. I know a lot about the hardware, but there's just items that, I wish that I could be a fly on the wall, just seeing what's happened in that store over the years. Yeah.
I mean, his grandma knew so much because she was the Varns. So he grew up watching his grandpa run the store, but grandpa wasn't the Varns. Grandma was the Varns.
So she was the operations.
She just knew.
She always received a check.
She
got a check.
She grew
handling
up
the money.
watching her grandpa and her father run the store.
Okay.
Yeah.
So her memories go decades before grandpa's memories. So we would ask her, Grandma, what is this? What is it? She'd remember a lot of things. She was an incredible woman. But some stuff would still stump her. Every once in a while, she'd go, I don't know what that was for. But
She
that's
could usually look at her diary.
Well, no, even things like that would have been before her time.
Yeah.
Like there's still just stuff that
Pull this out.
she wouldn't have known. And she goes, I don't know. It's before I was born. And then when you have a store that old,
Right.
it's kind of incredible to think a 94-year-old woman would have been like, I don't know. That was before I was alive.
She would have been born in 23, I believe.
Wow. That's wild. So there's a lot of history and generations. I mean, you're looking at over all of this time. So like when you're looking at this, we talked with other guests too about like when you have a business that's just gone over the times, the years, like how do you keep things fresh? Like what do you do on the space, like say with like marketing and like, because we look at generations too. So what do you do anything with that?
Oh, that's
I have
interesting.
seen some videos.
So what do you think? What do we do?
Half of our clientele is Amish.
Yeah.
So
You have to be careful with that.
we have to be careful, and they don't need it.
They don't need it. Okay.
They don't consume the marketing
Content.
that the rest of us English do.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to balance the content they do consume, which would be...
It always happens.
Oh. I put
Those
mine.
lights.
I put mine on silent
Those
before we
crazy
even
lights always
parked. No. No, we have to balance what kind of marketing to do because of our two distinct clientele. The Amish do not consume the same kind of content that the English do, but they read newspapers, they read the bulletin boards at various places of business. There's that, what's the magazine that comes once a week?
People's Exchange.
The People's Exchange.
Okay.
Stuff like that. And so we will do that. We also do actual in the mail stuff. So the Christmas sale is coming up soon, for instance. That's always in the mail.
See, and this is great because I wanted to bring this up, okay? So knowing your audience is so important. So in a space where we kind of live in this digital world, not everywhere's digital. And it doesn't matter even if it's, say, out in the country, but sometimes in the city, depending on the industry too. There's just certain mediums of content that you can reach the demographic of people that actually you do business with, right? So you guys have chosen, you have like just kind of more like direct publications where people consume the content that your content is different. It's put in a format that is received properly. Yeah. So, I mean, it's really important because, as we talk about like marketing, like some people forget about that. Like marketing isn't all digital, it's offline and online sometimes, just depending on who you're trying to reach.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's a hard thing for us because we are in a small town, a small hardware with a very close customer base. Like I can name probably 90% of my customers that come in through the door. I know them. I know where they live. I know them well. So I guess what I'm trying to say is a lot of our customers are Amish, and a lot of our customers don't necessarily use the social media and things online. They don't need it. However, we are a business in normal times. We are a retail business that needs to have a little bit of that online along with what we're doing right now.
Like visibility.
Yeah. And we do it just for fun too. So, there's that fun element that we are here in this world element because we maintain a Facebook page and post fairly regularly. But it's not your typical trying to sell stuff,
like running
Facebook
like ads
page.
And all of that. It's more so like in real life.
It's fun.
This is what we're doing.
Yeah, it usually features a product or two, but only in ways that make sense or makes it funny. Like our Facebook page is mostly just our dog posing with something, and it's kind of cute. It's kind of funny, or town news. They're paving Main Street right now, so kind of giving some updates. It's just not your typical Facebook for
But it kind of goes
stuff.
back into the character of what we've been talking about. Is when something goes wrong, they know who has the skinny on what's happening, and with the dogs, and it actually paints out like the character of your business. Say like, hey, we are like human beings, we're real people, and we're just like you, but we're a part of the community, right?
Yes, and it really is nice. People will come in just to see the dog.
Well, dogs are cool.
I just had it on just Saturday. It was the morning, and she's never there in the morning. And they said, "Oh, where's the little dog?" And I said, "Oh, she doesn't come till about 3:00.
She says she's in the stock room. She'll be out a little bit later after 3.
And then I did. This is the first time ever. Most people won't tell you why they come in. So it's pretty rare. You can't really quantify it. But somebody did come in and said, "Where's that flashlight I saw the dog with on Facebook?" And we knew exactly what they were talking about.
It's working, yeah.
And they came in, and she happened to be there at the same time. So it was almost like Disneyland in the moment. It was a couple. The wife was just over the moon. And it's just stuff like that, I didn't even sell the flashlight, but
They just want to
They had a wonderful little afternoon and they'll never forget it. And it's just cute and fun. It warms your heart. And at the same time, the people that actually really spend money at the store don't need marketed to in a way, because the Amish are coming because they need us. The rest of the people that actually spend money at our store are tradesmen, jack of all trades, and just like home makers, home workers on a Saturday, DIYers, and they're in the middle of whatever, and they can't drive all the way over to the next town over because they need help and they don't know what they're doing. So it's a very different, the DIYers, they do not know what they're doing. The other guys, they know exactly what they're doing. They're doing their plumbing, they're doing their electrical. They just need us to be there.
Yeah.
They just need us to be there.
Yeah.
And I mentioned how we learned to like tease people because it can be stressful, is that our other rule of thumb joke is when somebody's leaving with clearly a plumbing project or an electrical project, you ring them up, you don't say goodbye, you go, see you later.
See you later, yeah.
And they go, oh, yeah, probably. And we go.
Did you get everything that you need?
And we go at least 3 times.
3 trips.
And they go.
And like it's a magical number.
I know.
And they go, yeah, because I go, oh, you got lots of time for more trips.
Yeah,
and they
we'll
know
see a little bit later.
You know?
Yeah.
So we kind of lighten their load just a little bit.
Especially those Saturday projects in the morning. It's like you hit it early, and then you know it's going to be about 3 trips because, well, two if you're lucky. Because the second trip you're overbuying if you're smart. You're like, I'm going to get a little bit extra because I won't come back the 3rd time. And you still come back the 3rd time. It always works. Every time.
It's always 3.
Always 3. It's the magic number. So, okay. So just to wrap up here. So if someone wanted to visit your store, how would they find you?
They'd find us right on the corner, downtown Middlebury, 101 South Main Street. Or you can find us on Facebook. Yeah.
Or
Google.
Instagram.
Google.
Carrier pigeon. Like whatever.
Smoke signals.
Smoke signals. Yeah.
You know, it sounds silly, but the demographic, besides the people that come every week, the non-townies, right? So they're the tourists. Of course, we have a tourist factor. And it's almost always just Saturdays, though. And, you know, they're buying trinkets. They're buying cute things.
Unique things
stuff,
they can't find at the BB.
And they tend to be of an older demographic. And they will ask, oh, where do I go? Where should I eat? I heard about this other place we need to visit. And you want to just say, oh, just put it in your phone and follow the directions.
And they whip out the flip phone.
No, they'll even
How do I do that?
They'll even have smartphones, but they just don't. That's not their normal. That is not their normal. And so you give them old-fashioned directions. I walk them to the window, continue this way, it's on the left. Just the other day, I did it for Dutch Country Market. I was sending them to go get honey,
right.
and I gave them actual directions.
Well, part of that too is you're part of the local town, and you have all the dirt on all the good places to go. Like, hey, where should I go and where should I stay away from? Because they know whatever you're going to give them advice is because you live there. And you're going to point them at, like, what is the best place to eat that I haven't tried that's around here? You're going to know.
And we have to memorize all their hours.
Oh,
yeah. Well, yeah, people, we're also known as Varns and Google.
Varns and Google, okay.
Yeah. So, like, people will call us up.
You know you're going to get tagged for that. What's Varns and Google?
Just Varns and Google.
Varns
so
and Google.
they call Varns and Hoover asking for other people's phone numbers or,
hey,
is Goon Brothers still open? Or, hey, do you know if the post office is having issues, blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, well, we'll just look it up right here, I guess. And a lot of those people are Amish or people that don't have access
Or they're an older clientele
Yeah,
that
a lot of
don't
older-
necessarily do that kind of thing.
And like we have a police scanner at the hardware store, so
you
we
guys are getting in.
Yeah, so
you
like,
do know what's going on.
We know what's going
Yeah,
on. We know
yeah.
like especially like fires, which is
Okay.
a really big thing. Fires and accidents on US 20.
Mm.
So the Amish will always call us, be like, "Hey, where's the fire at?" Because they'll hear the sirens going, and they'll know that it's going east of town, west of town, and they want to know if it's somebody that they know, or if, like, you know, God forbid, one of the buggies got hit.
Right.
And that happens. So like, it's people call us or they come to the hardware store to figure those things out.
So now you just unlocked a whole nother component of like trust and credibility, and that is your marketing directly by being connected to everyone. They trust you, and people buy from who they trust. Mm-hmm. And that's really the secret component, is you don't have to do some of the traditional marketing because you're living it every day. And that's the trust factor. And
I think that's the key to any business, is learn your customers, befriend your customers, build that relationship with them. And if you treat people with respect, normally they'll treat you with the same respect, and life is just a lot easier that way.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for you guys coming to the show today. We'll see you next episode.